Welcome to the Joe Cortez Show here in Las Vegas, Nevada, the entertainment and the boxing capital of the world. Well, Joe, today I have a special guest who's a dear friend of mine for many years, and he's in the boxing game. And we go back in the days when I first came to Vegas, and then he came up from California. He was decided to become a cut man. He was a cut man, and we're going to go introduce Jacob Stitch Duran. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good, Joe. Thanks for having me on, man. I just sent a message to one of my friends that, hey, man, Joe called me. I'm on his show. If I would have known sooner, I would have brought you in. But no, thanks for having me here. It's a pleasure. And you're right, man. We've been in a lot of battles together, and I was just telling the people outside before, as I was walking in, how you brought me in to do the Balboa movie, and people don't realize when you called me. You said, I got a spot for you, and I remember I had a world title fight in Paris, France with Fabrice Tiozzo, and then the next week I was going to be with Audley Harrison, the heavyweight from England. So I said, no, I can't do it. I'm booked. And I called my wife at work, and she says, are you crazy? She goes, you have to take it. He says, Rocky's an American icon. Right. I called you back, bro, and you gave me the spot, man. So I want to thank you for that. And from there on, I've done 7 movies altogether. Just finished Creed 3 with Michael B. Jordan, and that's coming out 3/3/23.
Wow, that's amazing. I'm very proud of you for your accomplishments. Thanks. And not only as a cut man, but as a movie actor now.
Well, I always say I'm not an actor. I don't want to be an actor. These guys work too hard. But, for me to play myself in major movies like that, it's unbelievable. Me growing up as a farm worker and, born and raised in a migrant camp, and, to be here at this level doing a show with you and being in these movies and working all these world title fights, it's a blessing. It blows my mind every day. And, I always tell somebody it has to happen to somebody. I just happen to be that somebody.
But let me ask you, how did you get started into boxing? What brought you into the game?
It's a great story. In fact, I wrote a book called From the Fields to the Garden. I grew up as a farm worker, being in the fields, and my goal was to make it to the Garden, Madison Square Garden. Been there many times. And so from there, now they're filming a documentary. But I grew up as a farm worker in the Central Valley of California, and my address is CPC number 12, California Packing Company. But I was real good in baseball. Roberto Clemente was my idol.
Yeah.
And, I walked on to a college, Merced College, after high school, which was 9 miles away, but I didn't have a car. So I would go to school with friends, and they would go after school, and they'd leave home, and I'd stay in their practice, and I'd have to do this. And, I didn't know about grants and scholarships, real naive. And so I joined the Air Force. Mm-hmm. And 1972 and in 1974, I was stationed in Thailand. And I always said, that was during the Bruce Lee era. I would say if I went to the Orient, I'd want to study the martial arts. So Thailand, I didn't know what Thailand was, number one. I didn't know what Muay Thai was. Saw my first Muay Thai kickboxing, and the guy threw a kick and knocked the guy out, and said, I'm in. So that following Monday at the gym, they had Taekwondo. Well, Taekwondo sounds like Thailand to me, So I started training with them with the gi and the belt. This Korean art. Right. But then the Koreans left, and the Thais came in, and they took over, and they transitioned us into. So from there, I came back to the States, and I got into boxing, King's Gym in Oakland, where Andre Ward trained, just to improve my hands. Uh-huh. And from there, I started working with amateur fighters and promoted some fights, amateur fights in Oakland, and had some Golden Glove champions out of Oakland. And
did you get to compete yourself? Did you fight yourself?
I did in kickboxing. Yeah. And when I got back to the States, kickboxing was pretty much non-existent.
Right.
But they had karate tournaments.
Right.
And I joined karate tournaments, and one guy says, hey, man, you kick too hard. So that was just, the competition. But, I got into boxing, and then I followed my dreams. I moved out to the suburbs and opened up a school of kickboxing with just a credit card. I mean, show you how crazy I was, Joe. But I was already a trainer, recognized as a trainer. And from there, I had a lot of great fighters. But I made the move. I was a trainer first. I promoted fights. I mean, I did it all, managed fighters. But being a cut man was floating to the top.
How do you become? How do you start as a cut man? How did that happen?
Well, I wanted to learn all aspects of combat sports, right? And being a cut man, wrapping hands was one of them. And in those days, and you were there during those days, these cut men thought it was a secret. They wouldn't show their secrets, right? And but Will Edgington out of Sacramento, I used to watch him in the dressing room wrap hands from here to there and follow that mode. And I'd go home and I'd practice. And so I learned how to wrap hands. And but working cuts, same thing. I studied boxing. It was only boxing at that time. Marvis Frazier fought Bone Crusher Smith. I'll never forget. Richmond Auditorium. I went to the fights, and this one guy before the main event did a good job on cuts. So I went and said, "Hey man, can you trying to learn to be a cut man? Can you tell me what you did?" He says, "F you, I'm taking this to my grave, and you got to learn like me." And he walked away.
Really?
Joe, I felt about this big.
Sure.
But that just defined who I was because I never wanted to be like this man. Yeah. So my job is to teach. I've been doing seminars. I teach people all the time, because it's important for them to understand how to take care of a fighter. It's not fair to them.
Exactly. Now, we know that in boxing sometimes there's some things that go on in boxing in those corners. Sometimes you got to use some illegal substance that's not allowed. And I can tell you as a referee, I've caught some cornermen bringing some illegal substance. That's why now it's they're a little more strict about who gives you the adrenaline. They give you the adrenaline, or 1 in 1,000. The commission gives you that, and the sealed bottle, and you have to use that. You walk us through that.
Well, the only ones that yes, I will, and I'm glad because I'm here to educate, right. and I'm glad that I'm doing the show with you because you see what I see.
Right.
You and I are in the ring. Our bottom line is take care of these fighters. But keep in mind, Joe, that combat sports, boxing, MMA, kickboxing, now bare knuckle fights, none of us have to be certified to be called pros. Right. You went through certifications. Right. We don't. All you need is a license, a towel. And so there's so many mistakes that cut men do, and I study them all the time. Yeah. I always tell these young kids, look, if you get a cut man, if he puts a swab in his mouth or in his ear, you don't need them. Right. Ask them also, very simple question, and I've asked many people, the adrenaline chloride 1/1000, that's a medication that we use. Right. I asked these cut men, what is the function of it? Educate them. Right. Well, it stops the bleeding. Yeah, I know it does, but why? Well, it's a coagulant. No, you're wrong. Adrenaline chloride 1/1000, that's the one we put into the cup. That is a vessel constrictor. So as you see me when I work on a cut, I'll usually squeeze it first. Right. You get all the little blood out of these little vessels. Right. Then you put the swab on it, and it absorbs into the vessels, and it closes it. That's the function, and a lot of guys don't know because nobody's taught them. So,
So now what's illegal in the corners?
Yeah, Monsanto Solution. I think if you remember those days, I remember I worked with Livingstone Bramble. That's sulfuric base. And
I refereed Livingstone Bramble with Roger Mayweather one time.
I'll tell you we'll talk about Bramble, one of my best friends. But this guy ended up with a big old cut here, and I'm thinking, oh, yeah, they're going to stop the fight. It's bleeding. It's not bleeding. I see him like a year later. He comes to Las Vegas to train at Golden Gloves Gym, Joe. And I asked him, hey, man, how's the cut? He says, hey, I had to go to the doctor. They had to cut that out because it burned the tissue. That's what Monsanto Solution does. He had to cut it out, and they had to resew it. Right. And Monsanto Solution, in the old days, cocaine, tobacco, some of the stuff. But, it's not fair to these young guys. I remember I worked with one fight, and this guy gave me a swab, and it was black. I said, well, what is it? He said, I don't know, but it stops a bullet wound. And I checked with one of the doctors, and he said, it's sulfuric, it's an iodine or something, whatever it was. Yeah. But no, I wasn't going to use it. That's, so we got to improve this game. We got to educate, and, I'm glad we're having this discussion.
You just mentioned the word cocaine. What kind of that? I mean,
well, cocaine is, of course, it's going to, you would think it would do that, but that's in the old days when there was no regulations. Right. Right now, the commissions, and you're right, the thing with Louis Resto and Billy Collins and taking the horsehair out. That's
what happened back in Madison Square Garden.
Yes.
Tony Perry was the referee for that fight, I recall.
Yep.
And Panama Lewis removed the padding inside the glove, and when they would fight, he beat Billy Collins to a pulp. Yeah. I mean, Billy Collins was all busted up at the end. So Louis Resto won the decision. When Billy Collins Sr., the father, went to shake his hand, he felt that there was no padding in the glove. He said, wait a minute, hey, the guy got no padding in the glove. And that's when they got him, and the commission came, and they arrested him right in the ring.
Yeah, Panama Lewis, he spent some time in jail, and I remember reading a Sports Illustrated article where Billy Collins is telling his father, I feel like I'm getting hit with rocks. Yeah. But those are the mentality. That's why the commissions were established. Right. But you're talking about adrenaline, the commission's giving you adrenaline. No, they don't. They check for the expiration. In New York, let's say, they check for the expiration date, but like title fights in England and in Germany, the doctors will give you the adrenaline unsealed right in the ring.
Right.
But then that's another thing is the adrenaline chloride is by prescription only.
Right.
So, you get these guys that say they're cut men and there's so many mistakes being done.
Now, a lot of fighters get tested for drugs, prior to the fight, and sometimes if they have a history of they have been doing drugs in the past, they monitor them while they're training. They can show up, unannounced. They come in and they do a urine test on you to see if you're on drugs and whatnot. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, I'm not real familiar with I know they do that, but yeah, they could stop you anytime, any place, and do a drug test on you right there, But yeah, that's kind of out of my league.
Yeah, but you got to sign to an agreement to that. They just can't do that. You have to agree to that, and they come and do the random drug testing on you. But there's a lot of fighters that have gotten away with that in the past, but now they're very strict, and if you get caught doing something illegal, whether you're a cornerman or a fighter doing drugs, fighter doing drugs is something really unfair to the sport, to the fight, to his opponent, and to the boxing game. We don't want that. We want a clean fight and let the best man win.
Yeah, according and like Eddie Mustafa Muhammad said in this documentary I put together, Boxer's Nightmare, that the ultimate goal of a fighter is to render his opponent unconscious, and that means a knockout, right? And the knockout through time creates dementia, pugilistica. We're talking about Livingstone Bramble, and I'll air it here because I've never mentioned it before. He's one of my best friends that I worked with him in his final years of his fight career, but he has serious dementia.
Yeah.
He's in a group home right now, Alex Ramos, and that's the thing.
How's Alex Ramos doing? Alex Ramos was the Bronx bomber from New York. Whatever happened to him? What's happening with him now?
Well, he had started the Retired Boxers Foundation.
Right.
But that dementia has caught up to him too, and I think from last time I talked to Jackie Richardson, that was always with him.
Yeah.
I think he's in a home also being taken care of, and that's a serious thing that nobody's addressing, but we have to.
And that's one of the things. That's why I tell referees when I give seminars and I talk to referees, we try to keep the fighters from taking unnecessary punishment. Sometimes a fighter's taking too much. As a referee, I will go into the corner, check them out, have a call in the ringside doctor in between rounds, just to see how his condition. He doesn't necessarily have to be knocked down, but because he's taking a little too much, I want the doctor to evaluate how he's doing. So then what I do is I keep a closer eye on the fighter. And, sometimes it's best to stop at a punch too soon than a punch too late. Some referees don't know when to stop it. And back in the old days, referees won't stop a fight.
Right.
And sometimes I hear about some referees are afraid to stop fights because they're working in a fighter's hometown or in his home country, and they're afraid that something's going to happen to him as a referee. Maybe they're going to gang up on him after the fight. When you walk into your parking lot or whatever. I say, if you're going to be afraid to be the referee, pack it in. You shouldn't be a referee.
Yeah. But I could see that happening. Yeah. We were just talking about my partner, Pete Alvarado, that I was going to invite here. When we did amateur boxing, we used to do them in bars, Stockton and all that. After that, you get in your car and you go because you just never knew, right? But, I agree, just like a judge. You have to be impartial. You have to be straight and narrow. It's a very hard thing for you guys to do.
You got to call it the way it is. And talking about judges, there's 4 criteria in scoring a round. And some people say, well, what are those criteria, And I tell them, to judge a fight, first of all, you got every round you score, once you turn in your card at the end of that round, forget about that. The next round is like a new round. Forget about how many rounds this guy has won already. You're going to give him 1 because this guy has won 5 in a row. You're afraid to, you're going to give him the 6th. No, if he didn't win that 6th round, give it to the other guy the way it's supposed to be. But, some fighters, I say the cleanup blows, the ring generalship, the defense, and the effective aggressiveness. Those 4 criteria is what you look at when you're scoring a round, and scoring the fight. But a lot of judges, sometimes they get influenced. Sometimes they score what they hear, not what they see. You see, and that's why sometimes you get these controversial decisions, and sometimes you get judges that are afraid, like I said, they're afraid to call it because they're in the hometown of the particular fighter, or maybe whatever reason. I say you got to be, fair, square, all the way, And when the bell rings, you got to start even at the line. You can't have one guy already here when the bell rings, and then you got to catch up. No, start even at the bell.
And that's a discipline factor you have to have on your part. See, and nobody understands what a referee goes through. Mm-hmm. That's a good point. I was just looking at a fight the old day that Jorge Castro against John David Jackson.
Okay.
And Castro was getting beat by John
Castro
David.
was from Argentina.
Argentina, yeah, and John David Jackson, you know, he's so confident, referee let it go. The following round, he got knocked out.
Yeah.
You know, so, yeah, you got to understand. And I stopped the fight, Andre Duran, when he fought Esquerigi. And he was taking the type of shots that come in here and go out there, the long-term damage shots.
Right.
That's the ones I consider.
Exactly.
But I'm looking and I see the doctors are talking, and I walk in the ring and I'm working on cleaning them, and I whisper to him, I said, look, the doctors are thinking of stopping the fights. Do you want to continue? And he goes, just about this much. No. At that point, done. Stop the fight.
Okay.
And Virgil Hunter's the coach. No, it's okay. One more round. No.
Okay, the chief second was supposed to be
Yeah.
the qualifier.
My job's not to give instructions.
Yeah,
but I saw danger.
You saw danger.
And at that point, I stepped up.
You stepped up.
And I stopped the fight and all that. And the next day, at 8 o'clock in the morning, him and his wife called me and said, look, thanks, man. You know, I just didn't have nothing with me.
Yeah.
But I was looking at long-term damage, the ones that give you the dementia pugilistica.
Yeah. There's a lot of fighters that end up walking on their heels when they retire from boxing because they take too much punishment. But then a lot of goes also, people fail to realize there's a lot of the training to prepare for a 10-round fight. You got to maybe spar 80 rounds, 100 rounds of sparring in the gym, and people like to they forget about those rounds that they train, taking a lot of punches. Sometimes they have the headgear on and the heavier glove, so they have a little sense of protection. They say, well, I got the headgear on, the gloves are bigger, so I lower my guard, let myself get hit a little bit more than I usually do. And those punches to the head, I don't care if you're wearing the headgear or not, you're still going to have an effect on your brains, you know?
Yeah, and that's what they're finding out.
Yeah.
You know, that even that the headgear doesn't really value that much as initially thought.
Exactly.
You know, the initial pack, but it's that jarring effect. And another thing is, as we're finishing up with this dementia, is I made a comment the other day, MMA guys. When I first started working with the UFC, dementia was non-existent.
Right.
You know, but now years later, I've been gone 15 years from them. Years later, 8 years. Years later, I'm talking to guys that I worked with before, and they're showing signs of dementia pugilistica.
Yeah. Well, they have at the Rubel Brain Institute here, the Cleveland Clinic, they have a study for contact sports, boxing, MMA, football. They study individuals, these athletes. They study them like today, where you are today, and where you're going to be 10 years down the line. And they have some fighters that have been going there already for many years. And I'm not going to mention names of fighters that have been going there, but they've been going there for studies, and they want to see where they're at today. So this way they can see how can we prevent them from taking this kind of punishment? Well, how can we improve them from taking these kind of blows to the head? Can we put a more safety gear on them, like in football or in MMA, you know, or the size of gloves, you know, what kind of gloves you're wearing, all the kind of things. You have to investigate things that are happening today. 10 years from now, 20 years from now, probably be changed a little different, you know?
It's not going to change. Joe, you know, 20-something years ago, I did a documentary, Boxer's Nightmare, that deals with all that. Dr. Bernick, you're speaking about Dr. Bernick.
Dr. Charlie Bernick.
Livingstone Bramble was one of the recipients that they've been using. But, you know, my daughter, Carla, so proud of her. She's with a foundation now that's working on getting all these things institutionalized and working with Dr. Bernick and a bunch of guys and all that. And she brought up a point. There's a new sport, that slap sport, that they're bringing out. I think that's, you know, you're giving a guy a free shot.
Yeah, you guys saying
knocking him out.
Smack, yeah.
Yeah, you know, and I don't know if anybody's checked out the long-term damage, but I would think if you're getting cracked and getting knocked out, that's creating some kind of damage.
Yeah, I think they should do away with that because there's something where you stand there, it's a contest, you stand there and they give you a smack right side of your head and you see if you can take it.
Yeah.
You know? And then any blows to the head, your brain is like a rose on the stem inside, and anytime it gets whacked around, that your brain in there getting back and forth, wrapped around, and that's where you're going to get the dementia.
Yep.
You know, the brain injury. Your body's not made to really take that kind of punishment.
No, it's not at all.
You know, you saw what happened the other day, this past weekend, when DeMar, the football player got hurt, you know, from a shot that he took to the chest. I mean, sometimes your body's not made to take those kind of blows like that, you know. So what can they do to improve that? We don't know. In football, they've been trying. They changed headgears, you know, kind of the helmets. They've been improving on that. But not in this case. It was nothing to do with the way he got hit in the head. It was the chest. Yeah. You see. But there's different things as we go on. The studies are doing. Dr. Charlie Bernick is doing great with the Cleveland Clinic, and he's now up in Seattle. But he He was doing the study here in Nevada for a number of years. As a matter of fact, he even asked me to come on board with him to come out on the advisory board because he said, Joe, what are you doing with Leon Spinks? Because Leon Spinks used to come to my house and work out with me, and would do the mitts and hit the bag and hit the speed bag. I said, Joe, what are you doing with him? He said, there's so much improvement in Leon Spinks, I said, well, this is what I do. He came over to my house. I had him a boxing ring there. He came in to look, and he said, Joe, that's amazing, that you're doing this with Leon. It seems like with the routine that you got him working with, hitting the mitts and all that stuff, he seems to follow that pretty good. I said, well, that's what he did his whole life. Yeah. And now I got him doing that. He does it pretty good. He said before he wasn't even hardly talking or nothing. Now he's very talkative, and now he's being more active and doing a lot more things that he wasn't doing before.
That's great.
And all because I had him trained in the regular routine. But he was...
You refocused the brain on it.
Exactly. Yeah. That helped a lot. Yeah. Same thing with individuals suffering from Alzheimer's. You get them to hit the bag. You got a training program now where they got them hitting the bags, and it seems to bring back the shaking that they have. It seems to be wearing off a little bit when they do the training. But anyway, those are some of the things that with these studies that they do with the Cleveland Clinic with Charlie Pernick.
And they're even asking for fighters to donate their brain.
Yeah.
They got this one girl, Kelsey, that's already volunteered to donate their brains for studies. And Junior Seau did that, and, other people, but they need more.
Right, exactly. They need more of that. Now, let me ask you a question. What is the biggest fight that you've been about that brings back memories of something that's very special you did in a particular fight, the biggest fight?
That's a good question. I have to say the one with Vladimir Klitschko and Anthony Joshua. Okay. This was, I had gotten into, I didn't see Vladimir and Vitaly till Friday at the weigh-ins because my daughter Carla had gotten married in the island of Crete, and I got there Thursday night. But I'm talking to Vladimir, and I've been with him for 8 years. Yeah. Finally, I go like this. I said, look, don't worry about nothing tomorrow. I'll take care of you like you're my son. And I leave. Because I know these guys can't sleep at night.
Right.
Joe, I'm putting the Vaseline on him. All these millions of people are watching, 90,000 Wembley Stadium, right before Michael does his announcement. I'm like this, putting the Vaseline. He says, you could call me son. Man, that got me because I know it got to him, right? And, he lost his world title fight, but nonetheless, he called me, hey, Daddy. But months later, I saw him in Germany. And I said, Vladimir, that moment, why? He says, Stitch, he goes, there's very, very few people I trust in my life. You are one of them. Yeah. And to me, that was, it almost made me cry,
Sure.
And so, that was a memorable fight.
Yeah, that was Vladimir Klitschko. Was that Vladimir or Vitaly?
It was Vladimir.
Vladimir.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Vitaly told me now, as we're saying goodbye, he says, Stitch, if you were with me when I fought Lennox Lewis, I would have won the fight. He says, you are family. I love you. You are always welcome to my house.
Yeah.
Good guys, man.
Yeah, I got to referee both of them in Europe there, in Germany, and in London.
Yes,
back in the day when they were first starting out. I couldn't even pronounce their name back then.
Yeah.
But they both ended up being the heavyweight champion of the world.
Yeah, for 8 years now. Yeah. I did the Creed movie, right? Creed 3, and Michael B. Jordan, they used me as an advisor. They were giving away the WBC belt. So Mauricio, they come to me and say, who should give it away? Well, it was created by Jose Suleiman, Mexico City, should be given away by a Mexican guy. Well, they have like 250 extras in Atlanta. Yeah. There was one Mexican guy, older guy, about our age, right? I picked him to give the belt away. So I saw Mauricio when Ugas fought Earl Spence.
Right.
And I gave him that story. I said, well, look, let's take a picture. Let's send it to the Klitschkos. I got to let you listen to this. This Vladimir sent this back to me. And it kind of shows you the relationship that I have. But let me see if I can put this on.
My two favorite men, especially Stitch, with whom I spent so much time talking, and he actually saved my career on a lot of different stages. If Stitch wouldn't be in my corner, I would not make the record of 12 years being a champion. So that's so great to see you both, and Stitch is the man.
That brought tears to my eyes.
Sure.
They're right in the heart of the war.
Right.
Vitaly being the mayor of Kiev, and Vladimir is kind of like the spokesperson for the country, and of course you got Zelensky and all that. So, how can you not have that as
Sure,
top
sure.
of your stories?
Yeah, you got to take your hat off to these guys now. What they're doing out there, they're battling again.
Yeah.
In their country, for the country, for the people there, and what's going on. But I tell you, it's amazing. When you get into the career of boxing, how you get to meet different people from different parts of the world, and they become like family members. Doesn't matter what nationality.
No.
We're like a family when it comes to boxing family, right?
Yeah, and it's great. I did a final show in Tokyo, New Year's Eve. I worked with Kazuto Ayoka and was talking to Stan from South Africa, Christu Dulu, whatever. And yeah, we're reminiscing about the good old fights that we had in the past and everything. So it's always good to see people.
Yeah. Now, you say you wrap hands and whatnot. You got your. I saw you have your own tape now. It says Stitch on it.
Yes.
Stitch Duran.
Yes. Stitch Premium. Stitch Premium is the line. I have my own KO swell and my old tape. Michael's let me use it in the movie, and so that's like $1 million plug because I wrap his hands in the movie.
Yeah.
And in fact, I wrapped his hands every day, and he would cut them off after training, and I would tie them back up, and he would auction them off and donate the money to organizations.
That's great.
I got my own tape, and you have to learn to be an entrepreneur and specialize in things.
Exactly.
And yeah.
Well, the other day I was thinking about, I like to see like fighters I referee like Riddick Bowe and Evander Holyfield. I refereed the first and the third time they fought. Mills Lane did the second one. Mills Lane, may rest in peace. Mills Lane did the Fan Man when the Fan Man came. That was fight number 2. Yeah, he got all beat up, the Fan Man. But I refereed the first fight and the third fight. And I was talking to Riddick Bowe the other day. We were talking about, maybe we could create where we could do like a travel show, get Holyfield and Riddick Bowe and myself together, just go around and talk about those great fights that they had. Especially the first one. The first fight was a great one. I mean, all 3 of them were great. But the first and the third that I referee, it'd be good to talk to the audience, to talk to them about my experience being up close to these guys throwing these heavy punches, and me separating them and whatnot. Yeah. It was an amazing experience in boxing,
and that's a good point because people don't understand, Joe, how deep we are with these guys. To the point where, it's good for the fans to understand the moments you're going through.
Exactly.
The moments I go through when I get a hug and a kiss, and man, I love you. Those moments, when you're separating them, what are they saying to each other? Yeah. What are they saying to you? Yeah. How are you controlling it? Yeah, there's nothing like behind the scenes.
Yeah, I remember one time I refereed Roberto Duran when he beat Iran Barkley for the middleweight championship. Oh. And Duran was 35 years of age, and Barkley had just finished knocking out Tommy Hearns. So, Tommy Hearns had knocked out Roberto Duran before that. So nobody gave Roberto Duran a chance with Barkley. But Duran really, for one of the best fights of his whole career, winning the middleweight championship on a split decision up in Atlantic City. And I was a referee for that fight. And Roberto Duran, every time he sees me, he always hugs me and says, Joe, man, thank you so much for a great job you did refereeing that fight that night. Because I didn't let him clinch. I tried, as soon as they were getting, and I would tap on them, come on, get those arms out. And they would keep on fighting. I kept the pace of the fight going, and it was really a great fight. These are kind of things that people want to know up close what goes on in the minds of the referee, minds of the cut man. What's going on through our head while we're watching. These guys are banging each other back and forth. You're a cut man, I'm a referee. We're all like a team, but we're watching out for the safety of the fighters,
Well, let me ask you this question before we finish up. Is there one fight where you just went home thinking, damn, man, because like Anderson Silva in the UFC when he broke his leg, I felt bummed out. Yeah. Have you ever gone home and think, damn,
Well, the only fight I felt bad about was no fault of mine, but it was a fight when Robert Wangila was an Olympic champion from Ghana, ended up getting killed from a fight. Yeah. And I was the referee in that fight. And I remember it was that fight here in Las Vegas back in 1994. And a guy named Fernandez I think it was Frank Fernandez, was his opponent. And they would fight a good fight, competitive fight, back and forth. I would call in the doctor in between rounds to check the fighter. I said, hey, doc, just check him out. See, see how they're doing. He would check them out, and the doc kept telling me, okay. I sent the doctor to both corners. Yeah. But, they would check him out. And then at the end of the 10th round, Wangila got hurt with an uppercut, and he tried to grab, and then Fernandez pushed him. He went down on a push. So I said, no knockdown. But when he got up, I stayed closer because I knew he was hurt. Then he took a 1-2 punch, and I jumped in and I stopped it. And he said, "Come on, ref, I'm all right." And the fans were booing me. "Why are you stopping it?" You know, the fight was so close. And look, it could have been that he was ahead on the scorecard, and I stopped the fight. The fans were booing me, and you know, I came out the ring, and somebody said, "Hey, Joe, you're one of my favorite referees tonight. You did a lousy job. Why did you stop that fight?" They were okay. 15 minutes later, they come running out of the dressing room. You know, he's having seizures back there. He had to take him to the hospital. He ended up with a massive hemorrhaging of the brain, and they did surgery, and he ended up dying 2 days later. So I felt bad because you hate to see a fighter die.
Of course.
You know, but that's the kind of game we're in.
And that's the point, is real quick, is we have a heart.
Yeah, we have a heart. Anyway, fans, thank you so much for listening today on this very important topic today with my friend here, Stitch Duran, who was Jacob Stitch Duran, who was a great friend, a great cut man. God bless you. See you guys next week. Buddy, thanks a lot for being on the show.
No, come on, Joe. It's always good to see you, bro.
Take care.
All right.